This is the best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
American Pharaoh, the Triple Crown winner in 2015, is living the life.
I'm just reading from this article.
Yeah.
He'll have sex up to 3 times a day. And the quote is, they enjoy it quite a bit. He now commands $200,000 per cover.
Beforehand and afterward, there's not much room for cuddling, foreplay, or breakfast.
$200,000? No cuddling, no nothing? No licking, no nuzzling, no cuddling?
Just call her an Uber.
I mean, come on.
Devin in my ear just says, we're back here Googling horse sex jokes.
Okay.
Go ahead and read the joke you found.
Stable relationships are for horses.
Golic and Wingo with you, ESPN Radio, ESPN2. By the way, that drop alone is why Devin's not here with us.
That's
today.
exactly right.
We've upgraded as John from the
Paul Feinbaum.
Paul Feinbaum.
Paul.
Paul.
So we're excited to have John here, and Devin's
on a forced vacation.
He's on a forced vacation because of that joke alone. Again, that was after what happened. We're talking about that going into the Kentucky Derby, or was it before or after? I can't remember. Anyway, doesn't matter because
I was leading up to the Kentucky Derby.
Derby.
Yeah, that was the beginning of horse sex season.
And now we've got Justify. And again, horse sex season will end for us June 9th.
Yep.
But it will begin probably for Justify June 10th.
Belmont, again, the happiest people out there when Justify won the Preakness, if you could see it, in the fog and the rain and the mud of that one, going now for the Triple Crown.
Again, we are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. But right now, as we get set for Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals, it is time for Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. So as we go back to Game 3, which was Saturday in Cleveland, in the Eastern Conference Finals between the Cavs and the Celtics, the least surprising thing was that the Cavs won.
Right.
The most surprising thing was the balanced scoring that came out of it. 6 Cavs, including all 5 starters, were in double figures. That was probably the most surprising thing that came out of that win, right, Mike?
Oh, without a doubt. And it was George Hill right out of the gate. Had a big first quarter, taking the pressure right away off LeBron, not having to do everything right off the bat of is he gonna drive the lane? Is he gonna shoot early? Is he gonna kick out, try and get everybody involved? George Hill was involved early on. He ended up with 13 points. As you mentioned, JR had 11. Tristan had 10. Kevin Love had 13, and LeBron led the way with 27. Those are your starters. And then Kyle Korver off the bench with 14. So they got that all-around scoring that they needed, but you saw this one coming, and also couple that with the fact that the Celtics have only won 1 game on the road this postseason, and you get an easy Game 3 win for the Cavs.
Yeah, the Celtics tried to do the Golden State Warriors move of taking their foot off the gas without having the clout to really back that up and deserve it at this point. So we look at them and we say that's more of the traits of a young team who has defied that label in almost every term, has displayed a fair amount of maturity and has exceeded our expectations, but in that spot continues to fall short. And really the response, I know we've got the quote from Terry Rozier on their off day, but the response from Terry Rozier after this game to me is probably the biggest indicator of this is still a very young team that's got to learn how to handle these situations.
Well, again, they are statistically a younger team than the Sixers. Right. You know, people need to forget that. And Jackie McMullen, when she was on with us last week, said, hey, remember, this team is bad on the road. Yeah, they were 30 points bad in Game 3. And here was the response that Terry Rozier said after the butt kicking that the Cavaliers delivered to him.
We needed to get our butts whipped, come back to reality and take care of business on Monday.
Said no one ever meaning that.
Exactly.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I hear that when there's an undefeated team during a season and they lose and say, well, I'm glad we got that loss. I'm glad we lost. Now we can settle in. I'm glad nobody ever is glad they lost.
I'm looking forward to getting destroyed out there.
They got a butt whooping. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, to go in and that thought process, I think to your point, Mike, shows you a bit of the youth here to throw out a line like that.
Because you wouldn't say it before a game.
No, you would
not.
You
wouldn't go into Game 3 saying, we need to get our butts kicked. I understand that sometimes it happens, and you can say, we did get our butts kicked. We understand we've got to learn from this experience now, but to fall back, and it's a sports cliche. He's doing what a million other people have done and fallen back on a crutch, but to me, that was just kind of a tell. You look for ways when people are defying what you think of them to kind of see the tell, okay, there's some of that. There's some of the youth there that you've been masking with your great play and your Al Horford.
It's one thing to talk about getting your butt kicked and say it happened, we need to remedy that, but to say we needed it. I'm with you. It's just no shot any team ever really believes that this is just spin zone time.
But I also don't think this team needs it all that much. Again, when we're weighing both sides of this, what do we really believe in? Do either of you look at that game and still believe more in the Cavaliers team outside of LeBron James or the overall Celtics team? Because to me, that Celtics team has been the more consistent product.
There's no question about that. So, I mean, how you feel about the way this series plays out really depends on two things. Do you believe that this Celtics team, to Mike Jr.'s point, will continue to be a dominant force at home? Because really, they don't have to win a game.
No, they do not have to win one game on the road.
All they have to do is take care of business. They have not lost a home playoff game this postseason. And as we all know, I sometimes say stats are for losers, but sometimes when you're 37-0 in a certain stat, it has a little more weight than anything else. And again, they are 37-0. The Celtics are as a franchise whenever they take a 2-game-to-none lead in a best-of-7. So are you believing in the history of the franchise and the current run that this team is on, or are you believing that somehow LeBron James will find a way to do what he's done for 7 straight years, get to the finals? So the question is, what's your feel going forward?
Well, the feel going forward is what Mike brought up earlier, is what are you going to trust more if it gets to a Game 7? Boston at home, where they've been money and the stats are all on their side, or LeBron James? LeBron James in a Game 7, if it gets that far. And I'll let you know after tonight, because basically I had said this series was over. If Cleveland win tonight, I'll say tomorrow, just so I'll give you a preview, that I said that on purpose just to motivate the Cavs, and the Cavs were in it all along. That will be my stance, and I'll be sticking to it.
Someone else is going even a step farther than that. Our own Brian Windhorst has basically said tonight's game will decide the series.
My experience tells me that in a situation like this, whoever wins Game 4 wins the series. Even though it would only be 2-2 with the Celtics having home court. My experience tells me that. And so, basically, if the Celtics win tomorrow night, you better get your swim trunks ready.
Get your swim trunks ready.
No, but normally it's like get your tea time.
Yeah, how about that?
You went for swim. Like they can't swim when they're playing.
Listen,
I didn't quite understand that.
Maybe
metaphor.
It's a banana boat joke.
Maybe. I think for sure. If Boston wins this one and they're up 3-1, I think it's going to be over. But
right. But the bigger question is what happens if the Cavs win?
If it's 2-2 again, this is about Boston holding at home and it going to a Game 7. That's what more I think, that if it goes 2-2, this is going to go 7 games. And then it's going to come down to that. Maybe we can finally get a golden game, but a Game 7 where it's LeBron, because that's what it's going to be then. That's going to be Game 7 LeBron, which can be a special, special moment against a Celtic team that has been unbelievably successful at home.
But a Celtic team that Trey mentioned all of that history and their success in certain spots. When in that history was Al Horford your best player? I understand. I've been on the Al Horford revival tour as much as anyone else. The guy's been awesome this postseason after I talked a lot of what about him around the All-Star break.
A lot of crap.
And I get that. But at the same time, with Al Horford as your best player in that singular moment where Larry Nance Jr. can talk about not needing LeBron James to be the best guy and take all those shots, that's exactly the formula if you're asked to win one game.
So in the shortest way you can answer it, do you believe whoever wins tonight is going to win the series, yes or no?
Oh, my gosh. I think I'd lean toward yes, because I think if Cleveland wins, it goes 7, and I'll bet on a Game 7 LeBron.
What about you?
Yeah.
See, I'm not all in on there yet. I understand what you guys are saying about Game 7 LeBron, but Game 7 LeBron has never had these guys coming with him. And as well as they played in Game 3, they haven't been there. We've got proof of that in a little bit.
Golic
and Wingo.
And Wingo.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. Hope your Monday's off to a good start. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What a weekend. We had a little bit of everything you could possibly ask for over the weekend. We had the royal wedding. We had a couple of royal bouts of basketball where royalty showed up in terms of Steph Curry and LeBron James, and an unbelievable thing that has happened once before in the history of the NHL. So,
odds are being thrown aside in Vegas, and we'll get more into that. And the Preakness, we have Justify that's going for now a Triple Crown we'll get into as well. So, good weekend, good long weekend. I know a travel for you, of moving in for me, of you were traveling
graduation
as well. All
stories
that we'll get into. But
I had an all-world travel moment this weekend, too. You guys ever been there on the airplane? You got the drink cart going by, and they ask if you want anything to drink. Well, lately they've been a little bit more, I'd say, judicious with their distribution of the cookies. Those little Biscoff cookies, the ones you only get on the plane?
# Delta Flight.
Yeah. Oh, they're incredible. Well, so I was on American, actually. So,
Really?
yeah, they had the Biscoff.
All right.
The Biscoff cookies are universal, but how they're dealt out seems to be a little bit more up for grabs. And so they weren't just handing them out to anybody here. These were a little bit more, so you had to ask for them. Yeah, it was kind of had to know the password. And so I tapped dude on the shoulder. He was walking by. I'd already got my orange juice, and I was like, you got any of those Biscoff cookies? Hands me not one, but 2 packs.
That's a win.
Went above and beyond. I looked at him. That was like the God's plan moment. Like a little tear came down.
You guys have just that little bit of a nod to one another. Like, yeah.
There was. I'd only had one in-flight moment that had topped that, but that was a big one.
That's a good one.
I was pretty proud.
That's a good one.
You guys have seen the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Little extra aloha for you this morning.
Yeah.
Sir. Oh yeah. That's what that sounds like. Thank
At the buffet.
you.
Yeah. Very nice.
Get a little. How about a little rum? A little extra aloha for you.
There you go.
So you got a little extra aloha in terms of the Biscoff cookies.
Oh, the phenomenal Biscoff cookies.
Nicely done.
Fantastic.
All right, let's get started. Golden State looked like Golden State as they rolled the Houston Rockets 126-85 in Game 3, the largest playoff win in franchise history and the largest ever playoff loss for Houston, Mike. It was over really where it always seems to end for the Warriors third quarter.
Well, they had an 11-point lead at halftime, and it was actually the fourth quarter they won by 20. The third quarter they put up 10 more than did the Rockets, so they increased their lead to 21 going into the fourth quarter. It's just what they do and where they do it a lot of times when they're into it, like they weren't, I guess, in Game 2 when they weren't. But let's just Steph Curry got questioned more than a few times about his defense. Is he still hurt? Why is he missing so many shots? You know, why are they picking on him on defense? He decided to answer it, decided to get caught swearing on TV by his mom and yelled at. I've been down that road on national TV getting caught swearing and my mom yelling at me for that. But he was just fantastic. 2 of 10 he started out. Then he finished up 11 of 13 the rest of the way, including 7 of 7 in the third. He was a monster in that third period.
This has to be the most frustrating part about dealing with Golden State, right? Is they only have to play when they want to.
Yeah, correct.
Like they spend a whole regular season just sleepwalking through, not really caring what goes on. They get to the postseason and only really feel like showing up when it suits them. And now here, Draymond says, we get one game a series to go out and kind of be lackadaisical, and then we can just show up and steamroll everyone, and it works, and we just have to live with it.
Well, it's not even that they don't have to show up every game. It's that not everybody has to show up every game. In Game 1, it was Kevin Durant with 38, right? And Steph Curry was okay. He was kind of a non-factor. And then in Game 3, Steph Curry had 35. That's the difficulty of playing this team. Like, if you're Houston, your best 3 players have to be there every night, and they have to show out every night. Capella, Chris Paul, James Harden. They all have to be at their absolute best every night to win. Golden State doesn't have to have that. And that's the ultimate luxury.
So, and we know how this is going to go, right? There's another game in Golden State that Golden State most likely is going to win. I would put, heavy odds on that one. So they're going to be up 3-1. I mean, so while Houston will go out and play each game hard, they got to even know in their heart of hearts, you're not beating Golden State 3 straight games, which is what you would have to do if you're down 3-1. So then it's like, when does it end? Does it end when they go back to Houston, or is it that pride thing you're playing for at home to try and make it go back to Golden State? It's just a matter of when, not if.
Shuffling deck chairs in the Titanic.
Yeah.
Enjoy the sink.
Yeah.
And again, people say, well, wait a minute. It was just a couple of years ago that the Cavaliers came back from 3-1. Yeah, but that Golden State team didn't have Kevin Durant,
right,
and that team had Kyrie Irving as well as LeBron James.
And Houston doesn't have LeBron James.
No, they do not. Meanwhile,
as they say in hockey, let's do that hockey.
Congratulations to the Golden Knights. They are in the Stanley Cup Finals as they took down the Winnipeg Jets 4-1. They are attempting to become the first NHL, NFL, NBA, or Major League Baseball franchise to win a championship in its first existence in the league, excluding the first year of the league's existence, since the 1950 Cleveland Browns won the NFL championship.
And it's amazing as far as the different leagues. It was like that, a bunch right there. 47-48, it was the Baltimore Bullets in the NBA. 48-49, it was the Minneapolis Lakers in the NBA. And then 50, it was the Cleveland Browns. So Vegas loses the first game to the Jets in this one. You're thinking, okay, here, maybe the great story is starting to go the other way. Then they rattled off 4 straight wins. Never trailed at all in any of those games, as Trey's microphone just broke. Just hang on to that.
I was going to say, I love the Vegas Golden Knights, and I'm appreciative of this story.
Yeah.
But for anyone that's watching on ESPN, I guess we're on news right now.
News right now, yeah.
ESPN News right now, or is listening on the radio. Trey Wingo's microphone just in the middle of Dad's take decided to explode into his hands.
Yeah, just kind of broke apart.
Dan Stanzik's in here going to try and help fix it as best he can.
Well, hey, you guys say things for a minute.
Well, they try and fix it. Here's what we're talking about. Well, Vegas, I love the headline of the article about the Golden Knights. Vegas cheering, dreading a Stanley Cup title for Golden Knights. I mean, so the fans are going to be really happy about this. But remember the odds at the beginning of the season on the Golden Knights winning?
Yes, I remember them, Mike.
Yes, you do. Winning the Stanley Cup. It was the odds that people got were the most money that's going to be made. Somebody bet $400 at 300 to 1. They stand to win $120,000. There was another person that put $500 at 200 to 1. That's a $100,000 win. $400 at 150 to 1. That's a $60,000 win. So the books can get hit harder. Now, they're not going to get destroyed. They said it'd be like a bad NFL weekend, but there is a lot of people looking at that. I'm sure made just kind of, I got some bucks. I'm going to throw it down.
Those are the fun ones.
And this will never happen, but I'm just going to throw it down. And now here they are, 4 wins away from paying off a whole lot.
By the way, kudos to our producer, Dan Stanzik, coming in here and getting it done NASCAR pit stop
He's
style.
done great work.
That was very good.
He's done great work.
You mentioned the fans there, though, and that's the one area I'm interested in because someone brought this up this morning, is with this team and how much success they've had early. We always hear people on the other side, when teams are bad for so long, say you need to stick it out with your team. That's part of sports. With how good this team has been early, does that make it more difficult for the fan base there? Like, does that put a strain on them when you've got this spike of success early? Do you need struggle to form a fan base the best you can?
I mean,
I think if they go out and I think their fan base is pretty good for a while now because of the early success they've had.
So you think if they go out and win this first Stanley Cup, or if they get there right now and then after this they're not a playoff team for the next 4 or 5 years, you think that fan base lasts?
Well, those are two separate questions in my opinion. One, do you think this excites the fan base? Absolutely, but sustainability, I think. Look, you win a chip, you have a lot of credibility for a long time, unless you're the Marlins and you tear it all down 4 times in a row.
Where the odds went with it, I get what your point is. I mean, you heard their owner when this thing started out saying maybe 4, 5, 6 years before we become really competitive.
Nope.
Took them 1. Again, they were 500 to 1 to win the Stanley Cup. What are some of the odds that were greater than that? Go to 2013. Auburn football was 1,000 to 1. They lost a national championship game. 2011 VCU men's basketball was 2,000 to 1. They lost in the national semifinal. And in 2015, Leicester City was 2,500 to 1, and they won the Premier League championship.
Jamie Vardy.
Yeah.
It's the Jamie Vardy party. He scores when he wants to. By the way, the Vegas Golden Knights are what everybody's talking about. I'm glad I can with a working microphone. Brought to you by Lowe's. Pros in the nose start with Lowe's. Go to lowesforpros.com. And then there's Justify. Back-to-back wins in the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness. He won the 143rd Preakness in almost identical conditions. He's clearly a mutter. This much we know. So he's won the first 2 legs of the Kentucky Derby, and Justify is just the 5th horse to win both the Derby and Preakness with an undefeated record entering the Belmont Stakes, but only Seattle Slew in 1977 was able to finish off the Triple Crown, and that's what he's going to try and do June 9th.
Well, I tell you, what a race. It reminded me of when I was when I was in Philly, played against the Bears in the Fog Bowl.
But it wasn't that muddy at the Fog Bowl.
No, it wasn't that muddy. You just couldn't see, and at times the horses just disappeared. And, basically it was Justify and Good Magic that were out in the lead on this thing. Bravazzo made a great run at the end. If this race was another 50 yards, Bravazzo would have won this thing the way he was coming on, ended up finishing second, but Justify gets the win. Justify going for the Triple Crown, and we look forward to that in a few weeks.
And we'll have it with, I think, a lot of the mystery taken out. There were a lot of people worried about the heel of Justify coming off that Kentucky Derby that was a little less than 100%. And now get a chance to cap this off. Bob Baffert and company, have to be hoping for this kind of weather forecast, because if you get a bright sunny day, all of a sudden you got a wild card in there.
2 things to bring up there. Number 1, Bravazzo did almost chase him down, and the Belmont is the longest of all 3 races.
Exactly right.
So that's one thing. And 2, we listen, we don't have our live Doppler, AccuWeather, Skyscan weather forecast yet, but our fine researcher Riley has come up with the weather for the Farmer's Almanac. And June 6th to 9th in the New York area, thunderstorms then sunny and cool. So it's a possibility. It's a
okay.
possibility.
There you go.
We don't have the live look radar yet forecast, but according to the Farmer's Almanac, there could be some thunderstorms around those 3 days, which obviously would make a lot of sense and would be nice for Justify having won 2 of these things in the slop. All right, Golic and Wingo is presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. And speaking of Progressive, Johnny Manziel made a progressive move over the weekend, deciding to sign with the CFL. He signs with the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the Canadian Football League, trying to get back into playing ball. And here was Johnny explaining why he did what he did.
This has been a process of really vetting out what the best options for me were, and just looking at it from Coach Jones to everybody here, the way they've treated us to this opportunity. I don't want to wait around anymore. I want a chance to get on the field and get in the locker room and get a chance to play ball again. And I truly sit here today and think that this is the best opportunity for me to get up here with a coach like Coach Jones and this organization and get a chance to play again. That's what it's all about.
So for those who don't know who Coach Jones he's talking to, that's June Jones,
right,
who was a longtime coach in the NFL, was a head coach for the Falcons for the Wild, then went back to college, had some success at the University of Hawaii, and now is playing at the Hamilton Tiger Cats, or coaching for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I give Johnny a lot of credit here on one reason, on one level. First of all, look, if you want to play, go find somewhere where you can play.
Right.
And I think that he's doing what a lot of other quarterbacks, specifically Tim Tebow, didn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to prove that I can play quarterback. I'm going to go somewhere where I can actually play the quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, this is born of he had no other options.
Correct.
Right? I mean, he was putting out workout videos, and then he did some in that spring league for a couple of games to try and get noticed.
Went to a lot of pro days.
Right, exactly, to try and get noticed, to try and get on a roster, and it wasn't happening. So this was the next step. And I'm with you, Trey. He took it. Yeah. Because, there's saying you want to get back into it, and there's doing what you need to do to try and get that opportunity. And whether he fails or succeeds, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But that's what the same thought was with Tim Tebow. He struggled to pass in his passing like Manziel does. And there's passing in the Canadian Football League, the bigger field, you're whipping the ball around. You're really going to be able to show your wares throwing the ball. So that's what he's going to do. It's a 2-year commitment when you go to the Canadian Football League. It's certainly a different experience when you experience. You were up in Montreal. My dad played in the Canadian Football League on 3 different teams, obviously a long, long time ago. It's a different animal up there, no doubt about it, of what you're used to in the States. But it's a hell of a league, been around for a long time. It will give him a proving ground. Now, he has to beat out Jeremiah Masoli, the former quarterback from Oregon. June Jones said he's going to have his work cut out for him to do that as well. He's coached by Chip Kelly at Oregon. So we'll see. He's got to get into the starting lineup, number one, to show what he can do. But he's a guy who wants to do this, and this is his outlet now to do it, and he's trying to take advantage of it.
It's a guy who's got to stick around. Like, I'll give him credit when he sticks around. He's taken the first step, but if he's going to prove himself, he's got to be there. And we've seen plenty of other guys. Michael Sam went up to the north of the border to Canada and ended up not sticking around for the whole season. We've seen guys go up there and it not be a great fit because everyone talks about the learning curve for the intricacies of the game, but there's also that adjustment of this is not going to be the same Lux lifestyle you had at Texas A&M or in the NFL. It's a little different when you're living with the other half.
Listen, and to the point about the style of play, first of all, June Jones, the head coach, said, you're right, there's no guarantee he's going to beat out our starter. And this is Johnny talking about why he thinks he might have success playing in the CFL.
The speed of the game and with the way that you can be creative offensively up here, the things that I have heard from the people that I've vetted is this is a very offensive-minded, somewhat, guru type of league where you can come up with a lot of different things and be very creative in what you do offensively. So I'm excited about that and, the style of play that I think fits nicely with what has been beneficial for me in the past.
And that style of play he's talking about is frenetic. Right. Let's be clear. Johnny is best sometimes when the machine breaks down. Mm-hmm. But let's take away all the stuff that happened off the field, the partying, the issues with his ex-girlfriend, which if you read some of the indictments and the allegations are pretty bad. Take all that away. Let's say Johnny Manziel had a sparkling record off the field, which he does not.
Right. No, he doesn't.
I have legitimate concerns about whether or not he can ever function as an NFL quarterback to begin with. And it has nothing to do with any of that other stuff. It's math. I mean, Johnny is 5'11", probably about 200 pounds soaking wet. And his style of play that he alluded to is frenetic. In other words, he wants to play a little bit like Ben Roethlisberger plays in the NFL. And Ben Roethlisberger is 6'5", 250, 260 pounds. I just don't know if Johnny is legitimately built to play football in the NFL.
Well, I mean, I had the same questions coming out. I never would have been a first rounder to me at all.
No way.
I didn't think his game translated to the NFL. Now we're seeing guys that create a little bit offenses in the NFL are kind of trying to incorporate it into their offenses a little bit. It used to be, we don't care how you played in college, you're going to play this way in the NFL, so you damn well better learn it. They're morphing a little bit. NFL is not becoming college offenses by any stretch, but you're using the skill of that quarterback. So it's a little better for the guys like, I think, a Lamar Jackson, a Baker Mayfield, to Deshaun Watson we saw last year. I love how they were calling plays for him using his abilities and his style and implementing that into an NFL offense. But I listen, this is all going to be on Johnny. I don't think he's going to end up back in the NFL. That's just me, though. But
but if he does, good for him. Well, right?
Again, he doesn't care what I think or anybody thinks. He's trying to get back in. So this is the way to go. I'm here to analyze it off of what I've seen, and I don't see it happening for him. But he's going to give the effort. This was his route to go. This was an option to go, and he's trying to take advantage of it.
Well, this is the first time we're going to see that effort.
Exactly
the last time around, we didn't even get to see if someone could bring their offense up to meet him halfway. We didn't get to see if his ability was going to be enough because the rest of the stuff self-sabotaged so much.
Right.
That was what happened. We don't have an accurate look at what Johnny Manziel, the pro quarterback, looks like. We know what Johnny Manziel, the professional, looks like, and it was bad, but we don't know what Johnny Manziel, the pro quarterback, looks like.
No, we don't. And look, his official measurements when he was drafted in 2014, 5'11" and 3/4 inches, so you can round that up to 6 feet easily, and 207 pounds. But, a quarterback under 6 feet and right around 200 pounds, that's a concern. And Johnny's, like Russell Wilson is 5'11" and just a little heavier, but he's thick. Russell Wilson is stocky. Johnny Manziel is slim. He is. Again, just take away all the other stuff. The biggest concern I always had was simply physics. Is he going to be able to hold up? He may be able to hold up in Canada, and that may get some people that would look at him and say, oh, he could do this there. At the end of the day, is he someone you're willing to entrust with that frame more than anything else to run an NFL offense?
You look at a couple of quarterbacks who played in Canada and made it in the NFL. One I played with in Houston was Warren Moon. And the other
Warren's a big dude.
Well, and that's where I was going. Yeah. The other is more the size of the smallest quarterbacks. Doug Flutie went and played in Canada and then came and played in the NFL.
Limited success in a gimmicky role.
Exactly right. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. He's got to beat out. He's got to be the starting quarterback there. He's going to make, I think, $100 and some thousand is what'll be his pay. Jeremiah is making over $300,000. So he's the higher paid quarterback. The starter they have now in Masoli. So we'll see how it goes. I think camp started yesterday for them. So they'll have a game in a couple of weeks, and we'll see what happens. We'll see them on the field.
I'm sure we'll have plenty of highlights of that game coming up for it. It's a super long shot, and I guess I'm just interested because we finally get to see the quarterback. I really don't think the last time around we got a guy that was giving enough effort to consider it an honest try at playing quarterback in the NFL.
Which he admitted.
Oh, I mean, I get he admitted it, but I guess that's the thing. I have a hard time holding all of that other stuff all out to the side of the picture because it really clouded what we were able to see.
Here's a big question, and that part of it comes into play of his preparation and kind of laissez-faire attitude. What if he's not the starter?
Yeah.
What if he gets beat out? What if he starts the season as a backup? Where is the commitment level then? Because, and listen, the only reason we bring that up, because we saw it. We saw it when he wasn't a starter, some of his actions. So where does that come to now if all of a sudden he's not the focal point, he's not the man, he's not the starting quarterback there?
Well, look, when he came out of college, and he's changed, I believe his personal life has changed dramatically, but when he came out, my first question with Johnny was, I know he likes being a football star, but does he like being a football player?
Right.
To your point.
Yep.
And we'll find out whether or not he likes the grind and being a football player. He says he does, and he's doing the things that would lead you to believe that he does feel that way. We'll find out as it goes forward. By the way, we have another little nugget in the NFL that's coming up, which is a win for everybody. We'll get into that a little bit later. Plus, one last note on the Golden State Warriors here. We talked about that third quarter. Warriors' opponents are now have been outscored by 77 points in the third quarter in this year's playoffs. The next closest team was the 76ers at plus 38. So, yes, it was the fourth quarter where they blew it out last night, but it's the third quarter where they stretch away, and they've done that the entire postseason. And I think they were plus 372 in the regular season in the third quarter. So that's where they really have made their difference.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him, "Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash." His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So, it was all good.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night, no doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, the hot takes over the Western Conference Finals have been pouring in over the last couple of days. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo on a Monday morning on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. But Ryan Hollins, our NBA analyst, joining us in studio, giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. And you were enjoying that little shimmy shake we had going into the start of this hour. You were a little grooving a little bit.
Yeah,
You were grooving a little bit. Hey. So we're glad you're with us. We'll dive deeply into the basketball playoffs and everything else in a little bit. But this hour of Golic and Wingo is brought to you by La Quinta Inns and Suites. Book at LQ.com, Mike, and win at business.
Yeah, it was a nice. I thought it was a fun weekend of sports
Tremendous
going on
weekend.
between the hockey and the NBA. The Preakness, Justify win, so Justify going for the Triple Crown, the Belmont in a few weeks. So
And then lots of horse sex.
yeah, then a whole lot of stud fees going on around there.
And plus, the Yankees continuing to clobber the baseball, by the way. I get it was against the Royals or one of the worst teams, whatever. They've now won 21 of their last 25 and are 30-13, the best record in the bigs. Lots to get to as Hollins is fired up. So let's start with what's trending. And that would be the Las Vegas Golden Knights, Mike. Much to the excitement of the home crowd fans in Vegas, much to the detriment of a lot of the sports books in Vegas, as they are now just 4 wins away from the Stanley Cup after taking out the Winnipeg Jets in 5, and that could create massive problems.
Yeah, it really could. I mean, again, they lost the first game and then won 4 straight, never trailed. Marc-Andre Fleury has been fantastic. They'll await the winner. They would be, if Tampa Bay wins, Vegas would be the underdog. If the Capitals come back and win this series, of which they're down right now 3-2, then Vegas would be favored over the Capitals, but Tampa Bay looks to close it out tonight in Pittsburgh. We'll see if they do that. They would be favored
in Washington.
In Washington, I'm sorry. But what a story this has been. Beating the odds 500-1 at the beginning of the season. More than a few people are set to make, a few $100,000 on it. That's one of those you just throw a few bucks down and just kind of say, I'm just kind of doing it for the fun of it. Now you're 4 wins away from a nice big paycheck.
Suddenly it's not so fun anymore. You're like, no, I'm counting on this money now, right?
Exactly.
Things change
it's a
dramatically.
Great story, though. Great story.
Again, the first NHL team to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals since the St. Louis Blues of 67-68, although caveat, everybody in the West that year was an expansion team, so somebody was going to do it. So congratulations. That does change the dynamic a little bit.
The best loser. No?
It's a slightly different set of circumstances, which makes it so much fun what the Golden Knights have been able to do. And Barry Melrose will join us a little later to talk about that and what's going on in Washington as well. Meanwhile, there's our guy.
I want you to show the way.
Shohei Ohtani, the Angels rookie, did it again. Got his 4th win, striking out 9, Mike, in 7 2/3 innings of 6-hit ball as the Angels snapped their 5-game losing streak with a 5-2 win.
Throwing well in the situation where we talked about at the beginning of the season, would he give up more home runs or hit more home runs? Right now he has hit 6 home runs. He gave up his 5th home run yesterday as well, but did get the win as he sits 4-1 on the year. And the talk now is, after the game, he was asked whether he'd thought about being in the home run derby on July 16th in the Baseball All-Star Game is in Washington. He said, I don't think I'm at that level yet. I'm honored to be in that conversation. And listen, the All-Star experience, no matter what sport you're in, is about what can be entertaining to the fans out there.
Yes.
And either at the game or watching. And Shohei Ohtani in the home run derby would be entertaining.
Extremely.
Would be absolutely entertaining going against, the big bats like the Aaron Judges of the world if he's going to go in it again and defend his title. But I don't think I would love him to get asked, and I would love him to accept that. I think it'd be great.
By the way, the All-Star Game will be in Washington this year. And the best part about me going down for Georgetown Law graduation over the weekend, I did some advanced scouting for us. Mm-hmm. I found a really cool place we need to hang out. You will enjoy that. You will enjoy that.
I like that a lot.
Let's just say one of the best rooftop bar experiences I have ever seen mean.
You know me, I don't like bars.
Yeah, no, never. Especially rooftops on a glorious evening overlooking water. It was fantastic. Hashtag Watergate Hotel.
Okay.
We will be there. It's awesome. Look, I've known JJ personally for a long time. If you don't know him, you saw what he did with Houston with Hurricane Harvey. He also, we showed the clip of Ty Williams walking across the stage at Georgetown last hour when I asked him to. He presented a motivational video for Ty. This is who J.J. Watt is. Texans defensive end J.J. Watt will pay for the funerals of those killed in the shooting at Santa Fe High School, the team confirmed. 10 people were killed Friday morning and 10 more wounded when a 17-year-old carrying a shotgun and a revolver opened fire at the high school 30 minutes from downtown Houston. JJ told me no parent should ever have to go through that. He's paying for every one of those funerals.
Listen, J.J. Watt has shown, what a heart he has. And for people to understand, most athletes are like that. You watch sports and you watch these guys, they're human beings. They're not just robots. And a lot of guys do a lot of good things, and J.J. Watt has certainly been one of those. On the other side of this, it's so damn sick of seeing these ridiculous school shootings. And listen, I'm not gonna sit here and make this political, say I know the answer to anything or any of this about gun control or this or that, but oh my God,
the answer of doing nothing is long past.
I don't even know what to say anymore. It's just like you wait for the next shooting or the next tragedy out there, and everybody sends their thoughts and their prayers, which is, okay, that's fine. Yeah. But,
how about doing something
instead? What concrete can be done? And as I said, I'm not going to sit here and say I know the answers to do that, so I'm sure a lot of people would say, well, then shut up about it if you don't have some answers. I have thoughts on my answers, but this isn't the forum for that. We're a sports show, but there is a side of it where a bunch of kids got killed at yet another school shooting, and it's just getting real tiresome and ridiculous.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Ryan.
Responsibility. I don't want to dive in, but I just say responsibility. But this is a superstar, J.J. Watt.
Yes,
that's what makes it's not necessarily what you do on the court or on the field, but what you do for others. The message that you leave. Mark of a true superstar, J.J. Watt. That's huge, and you know him better than we do. But that speaks.
The next time someone says stick to sports, say, well, then I guess J.J. Watt shouldn't have raised all those millions.
Yeah, $37 million
for Houston, or done this here, or some of the things that other great players in the NFL and the NBA have done. So when you say stick to sports, you're understanding you're cutting off all that. Yeah,
stuff. There's a lot of
so
guys.
Understand what's coming out of your mouth.
A lot of men and women athletes out there that do a hell of a lot of good. So sticking to sports is one of the ridiculous statements.
That's not normal. Everybody does not have the ability, I don't want to knock them, to be a superstar in their sport and a superstar off the court or off the field. That's not normal.
No, it isn't. And kudos to JJ. And again, hopefully this will not be, though I fear it isn't, the last time we'll have a situation like this. What happened in Santa Fe High School outside of Houston. Okay, Golic and Wingo with you, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. But as we said, Ryan Hollins is here. So I ask you simply, are we ever going to get a game in any one of these conference finals, whether the East or the West? Are they all going to be blowouts the way it's been so far?
I'm hoping I need Cleveland. we need to see some basketball.
Yeah.
Arguably, this was the worst second round of NBA that we've seen because we had, 5-1, then one sweep, and now there's a potential for this happening in the in the finals again. So I hope we get something. I need some fight out of Houston. Hopefully they can get one at home because they don't have a chance the next game.
Again, the average point differential in the conference finals this year is 24 points. 24 points between the East and the West. It's in 2017 it was 19, and 2016 it was right around 19, and now it's 24. Yeah, we just don't feel like we're getting a good one. Game one, Golden State and Houston was good for about 3 into the fourth quarter, and then it got away for a Houston win there. So I don't know. I would love to get one, but I have no idea if we're going to get one or not.
Well, you're right. And listen, Houston had a great game 2. They came back after getting thumped in game 1. But they go and lose by 41, Ryan.
Yeah.
Tell me how this doesn't end with Golden State in the NBA Finals. Tell me, give me an answer that we're not knowing. We don't know how this is going to play out, right? Create the scenario for me. Give me some drama.
Give you some drama. When it gets personal, when your legacy, your career, your the fibers that create you as a man are on the line,
right?
Which is what it's looking like for Houston, because how we're talking about 40, they're in the locker room. I've been there. You're hearing the headlines. You're getting the text. Man, you guys can't get blasted like that. You're watching the film. You're watching guys give up on film, and it becomes one of those talks like Cleveland just had, and it's like, what are we doing here, fellas? What do we have left? Why are we on the court? We have to get better. You know, the one thing about the playoffs, it's just more than just basketball. You know, it's more than money. That's what I love about the playoffs. It's not about, we all make the same amount of money in the playoffs. Oh, he makes 10 million, he makes 20. It's like, no, man, your legacy is on the line.
So, in my sport of football, especially when you get to the playoffs, it's all one and done. So it's like saying I lacked effort here or it's a throwaway game here. Doesn't fly because you lose, you go home. So explain to me then, we're talking when Golden State, you get Draymond Green said, we get one of these. You know, a series where they blow out Houston and end up blowing them out in game one, and then all of a sudden game two, lackadaisical, 15 turnovers. Doesn't seem like, that Golden State effort is there. Cleveland, with not only X's and O's can they be bad on defense, but, you make up for it by not hustling. That's like, being weak, and you make up for it by being slow as well. It's like, wait a minute, okay, we don't technically play good defense, but you can always make up for that with a little bit of hustle and heart, but you don't have that as well. And these games kind of get away from you, which is foreign to a guy like me, where it's one and done sport, like football, but here you play a little more loosey-goosey with it.
Well, in basketball, you can be willing to let a game go to an extent. You don't need to keep your biggest because you live to fight another day. And the beautiful thing about our game, we always throw around, this guy's a superstar. He's an all-star. He's like this. Wait till the playoffs to see.
Right.
We'll see who why? Because you got to beat me 4 out of 7. Why is that important? Beating me 4 out of 7 times means I made you shoot a jump shot. You beat me with your jump shot. I got up on you. You beat me with your drive, Steph Curry. Then we trapped you, and you beat me with your pass. Superstars are built because they have complete games. In the regular season, maybe you get away just shooting jumpers. Okay, maybe just bullying people to the rim. But in the playoffs, there's going to be a game plan specifically tailored for you, whereas in football, you guys have done more studying over those 6 or 7 days or weeks in the Super Bowl, like leading up, that you're literally prepared for every single scenario. Where in basketball, we're a little more free flowing, but we buckle down and hunker down game by game, and you'll see the different looks. You'll see the different coverages. You see they're forcing Steph Curry to drive the ball. Right. And then last night, it was like, whoop, 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 whoop.
Shoot. Yeah. To that point, Ryan Hollins, our NBA analyst, in with us in studio, and I'm glad you brought up Steph, because when you mentioned the Rockets, how they lost last night affected their fiber. Clearly, Steph knew after game 2. He was okay in game 1, but after game 2, when once again he struggled from the 3 ball, he admitted he knew it was going to be all about him going into game 3. So his response, where he was started out again slow from deep, but came out on fire in the third quarter. Shocker, this is what the Warriors do, as they pull away in the third quarter in almost every playoff game. What does that tell you about where he is? Was it more about getting rust off and being in a more competitive environment, or health? Because both things were questioned through the first 2 games of the Western Conference Finals. His response in Game 3 at home told you what about Steph Curry?
He's back. Yeah. He's back. No issues. And I'm gonna no, he's still got some issues. I'm gonna give him 85%. So when
that was a hell of an 85%.
That was an 85%. When you're injured as an athlete, and especially in basketball, your mind says some things that your body can't do. And your mind is telling Steph, hey, shoot the 3, pull up from half court, do these certain things. And his body's like, no, not working. And last night, we saw the mind, the body, and I'm going to add this in, fellas, the rhythm catch. And now he's feeling it. And now he hears that, he gets that same feeling, that same moment of shaking guys around, knocking down threes, getting to the rim, being confident in what you know you're going to do. We're all mathematical geniuses. We're all perfectionists. We don't want to make mistakes. So when I know when I shake left, I shake right, I'm going to get a 3-pointer. When I shake left, shake right, I'm going to drive to the rim and I'm going to hit my floater. You know, that's called getting in your bag. You know what's going to come about because he's worked on that shot thousands of times whenever you do it. And now that confidence comes back. That's dangerous. You're not guessing. See, the first game, 1 and 2, he was guessing, am I going to make this 3? Are my feet going to be under me? And he got back to being who he was.
So, again, in comparing our sports, so as you mentioned, and you're right, in the playoffs, you have a week to get ready for the game. You try and cover all possibilities. Super Bowl, you have 2 weeks to get ready for that one game. But one thing we talk about, like during the regular season, is when we play an opponent in our division, which we play twice a year.
Yes.
The game plan, we kind of know that team already. So you're talking about a series now. At what point in a series where you're like, you know what? Outside of some tweaking of X's and O's, there's not a whole lot. We know this team. We know what they're going to do. They know what we're going to do.
Yes.
It's about execution.
So it's almost, that's why you're going to see these game fours be so much better. So if you're Houston, right, your back's against the ropes. You got two options, right, fellas? Fight or flight. So the next game, they got to lay it on the line. See, we can stick to the game plan. We can throw coverages. And then when that coverage does not work, we got to hit you. We got to get physical with you. We got in a sense, I want to say hope. I don't know what the outcome is, but like you talked about, I'm going to give it everything I have. This next game, you guys asked for a close game, right? Earlier, we asked for a close game.
We're looking for one in either one of the conference finals.
This Cavaliers-Celtics game is going to get close because you throw out your general look. We're going to play our basic coverages. We'll see how you react. Now we're going to throw a curveball at you. Now we're going to insert different players into the lineup. We're talking Boston, Cleveland. Now those two teams know each other. They're no longer guessing. They know what's at stake, okay? So this game 4, you're going to see the Celtics attack Cleveland with everything they have, literally.
Yeah. So listen, as Ryan Hollins is with us in studio, it's game 4 tonight between Cleveland and Boston. It's in Cleveland. Brian Windhorst, our NBA insider, says he believes whoever wins game 4 is going to win the series, which means he doesn't believe if the Cavs win that the Celtics can do what they've done all postseason, which is continue to maintain home court. Again, just so you know, I think they're 9-0, or are they 9-0 or 7-0? I think they're unbeaten.
They haven't lost.
They
at
haven't
home.
lost at home yet this postseason, and in the Celtics franchise history, they have never lost a series in a best of 7 in which they've gone up 2 games to none. Of course, the other side of that is LeBron James is trying to get to his 8th straight final. So, do you believe that whoever wins tonight, game 4 in Cleveland, wins the series?
Well, Brian Windhorst is absolutely correct with this. If this is Cleveland, they get the confidence of going 2-2. Then they know they're going to get another home game, and now it's our experience. Even if we drop one after winning, it's our experience versus their youth. Our experience versus their youth. Their youth came in and played last game. We talk about toughness, right? They called themselves goons. They were gooning up, according to Ty Lue. The game up. Experience comes into play because as an experienced goon, you know when to climb into the ball, get physical with your guy, and you know when to get off. You know the feel of the referees, and that's what was missing from Boston because the whistle was different, the tempo of the game was different. They lost their aggression. It's finding out how to be aggressive in all scenarios, and that's just experience. Those young guys didn't have that.
So, what do you expect tonight?
Oh, they're gonna lay it out. They're gonna and
Boston gets it tonight.
No, I don't think they get it. But I think we're going to get a much spirited effort. And they felt like their hands were clamped last game. They could not get as physical with Cleveland as they wanted. And one of the best things that they have working in their favor is that they have a deep bench. There's not necessarily a go-to guy on that Boston team. So if one guy gets an early foul or 2 fouls and he has to sit down, all is not lost in Boston.
Right, so Terry Rozier said it was a good for the Celtics. It was a good thing. We needed to get our butts whipped. You believe that in any way, shape, or form?
Always.
You think it was a good thing that they got their butts whipped?
That's a young team there.
Right.
That's a young team, and they've got to remember, hey, we're getting knocked around. You know, we're talking too high of ourselves. We cannot forget. You know this. It's called a healthy fear. I'm not afraid of you, but you've got me energetic enough, believing enough that I have to go at you with everything I have. I'm never taking you for granted. It's the hardest thing to contain. As a young player in the league, I didn't learn this until later on, how to just be motivated for each game.
See, I never bought into that. So if you ask him before game 3, would he have said, you know what, we should get a whooping tonight. You know, we should get beat tonight, and that's going to help us down the road. I don't buy into the after the fact saying, I'm glad we got whooped. We needed that. Just like I don't buy into when a team is undefeated and they lose one at the end of the season, they say, well, I'm glad we got that loss. Now we learn from it. Bull. You go out there and win every single game. I mean, what are we learning from that?
He's saying not that they didn't go out to win every single game, but they didn't have the same energy. And it comes with experience, just knowing how to get up for every single game. Like, I didn't learn that until later on, how to give my best effort or how not to think, oh, we got them, we can beat them. It's just a weird kind of zone-like mindset that you get into.
I guess it's just how you word it. I would rather hear, you know what, I got my butt kicked and I need to learn from that rather than, we needed that butt kick. And I guess it's just the way it came across to me that I was like, wait a minute.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right.
All right, so Ryan Hollins is with us, our NBA analyst, also part of the Killer Threes and the Big Three.
Yes.
Coming up a little bit. But before we let you go real quickly.
What you got?
The Cavs had 6 players in double digits. If they do that, they're going to win every game they play. Maybe not against Golden State, but you know what I'm saying.
You mean LeBron had 6 players in double
Exactly. So they can't count on 6 in double figures. How many do they need to have in double figures tonight to even this series of 2 games apiece?
I'm going to say 5.
They need 5.
I'm going to say 5, and even more so if you get 10 points out of Tristan Thompson.
Yeah.
You're cooking, because that means he set a whole lot more screens, and those screens were effective, that which now get him wide open at the rim.
Well, listen, you'll be cooking with the Killer Threes.
You're going to average double-double?
I got you, brother. Hey, I got you, man. Come on, man.
I'd just like to see your coach, Charles Oakley, come off the bench and throw a pick or two in that. That would be really interesting.
You asked for a goon squad.
Hey,
come on, man.
You got some Steven Jackson runner. You guys ain't kidding around.
Wow, you really
guys ain't
do.
kidding around. Ryan, we appreciate you being with us.
Anytime, fellas.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold. It's very interesting where that went.
Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. Phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Golic and Wingo reminding you that the NBA Eastern Conference Finals and every playoff game going forward to the end of the finals, how long it may be, will be on ESPN Radio. Tune in tonight for Game 4 as LeBron and the Cavs host Jason Tatum and the Celtics, presented by Indeed. Coverage begins at 7:30 Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. All right. Big game tonight, and our next guest believes that the winner of this game will win the series, and that's ESPN's Brian Windhorst, our insider, joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Brian is in Cleveland for Game 4 tonight. Brian, we played the sound earlier from you saying you believe whoever wins the game tonight will advance to the conference, to the finals out of the East. What makes you so sure that whoever wins Game 4 is going to be there when it's all said and done?
2 reasons. One is just 15 years covering the NBA. My experience level tells me in a moment in a game in a series like this that tends to be what happens. The last time I remember feeling this way was in the finals back in 2015. The Cavs were ahead 2-1 in that series, and they were hosting Game 4. And I just remember thinking, whoever wins Game 4 is going to win that series. And the Warriors did and won the next 2-1 on the series. The other thing is there's an X and O schematic thing going on here. This series, there's a lot of stuff going on. We talk about we focus on a lot of it, but the chess match, where the rubber meets the road, is the fight over freeing Al Horford or controlling Al Horford.
Free Al Horford, yes!
That is where Brad Stevens and Ty Lue are rolling up their sleeves and staring eye to eye at each other. Al Horford is an incredibly important part of how the Celtics operate. In Game 1, he was phenomenal. Going up against Kevin Love, they operated in an unending burst of pick and rolls aimed at Love, and using Horford as sort of the leveraging point for the whole offense. They blew the Cavs off the floor. Since that time, the Cavs have completely changed their defense, putting Tristan Thompson in the starting lineup on him, using Larry Nance as well, and Al Horford has been somewhat neutralized. And so what I expect is Brad Stevens to have gone into the lab over the last 48 hours and figured out ways to free Al Horford. And if that happens, I think the Celtics offense, which, by the way, has not been that good the last 2 games. They shot 43% in Game 2. They got through it because of just a couple of scoring bursts, but they were not good offensively in Game 2. And then through 3 quarters, which is only part of the game that mattered, they were under 40% in Game 3. And that's partially because they haven't got Horford going. So if you're an X and O's aficionado, just watch number 42 from the Celtics tonight and how the 2 teams handle it. And to me, that's going to be a major factor in what ends up happening in this series.
Is your expectation on the other end with Cleveland for LeBron to be the attacking LeBron, or the LeBron to let's see who else can get involved? George Hill took care of that in the last game by getting involved early on. But which LeBron, at least in the first 5 to 8 minutes of the game, would you expect to see?
Well, Mike, I think he prefers to play as the facilitator. You had 12 assists in Game 3. He prefers his teammates to get going. So I think what he would probably come out and do is look to see if that's still flying. They shot 25% on threes in Game 1 and 2. Now, some of that was just the Celtics playing terrific contesting defense, but some of it was the Cavs just were missing. They were 2 of 15 on uncontested shots. I mean, that's just not who they are. In Game 3, they were obviously phenomenal, 17 to 34. They are neither of those teams. They are not a 25% shooting team. They are not a 50% shooting team. But that is a struggle that in a back and forth that LeBron would prefer to have the Cavs going from the outside. So I look for him to get his teammates going early and only take over control if they're not doing it, and he's got to do it himself.
Brian Windhorst with us, our ESPN NBA insider in Cleveland for Game 4 tonight. By the way, let's be clear about one thing. If the Cavs get 6 players in double figures, they'll probably find a way to win again.
Yeah.
I mean, that was ridiculous what happened Saturday. But you wrote a very interesting article for .com, which I read, and basically it said for Cleveland, it may sound a little too simplistic, but when they hit their threes, they're going to win. When they don't, they'll lose. And you went on to say it's not that simple, but you laid it out pretty clearly that if they can get some of those three balls to roll, suddenly their defense picks up, everything changes. Can you explain why that is so significant for this Cavs team who has all those defensive lapses at times, how important that is for them?
Because they're just fragile, Trey. They're just a fragile team, and their effort level and interest level and execution level ebbs and flows seemingly at the drop of a hat, and that drop of a hat is the drop of the three-pointer. And it's not a healthy way to play basketball to be so reliant on a three. A championship-level team defends its backside off and sticks to its principles, and works its processes, whether the shot is falling or not. And you win a game 92-89, or you win a game 125-117, depending on the flow of the game. Generally, that's not who the Cavs have been all year. And Game 2 is a great example. The first half of that game, they go 7 of 14 on three-pointers. They're playing good defense. They had a lapse at the end of the half, but they go up 8. I think the Celtics were shooting about 40% in the first half. They were engaged defensively. Second half, 3 of 17 on three-pointers. All of a sudden, their intensity level drops. The Celtics shoot closer to 50% in the second half. They end up passing them and winning easily. It's really a lot of the way they play comes down to those three-pointers, because it covers their sins and it tends to fuel them the rest of the way. Certainly that's not the type of team they want to have, but that's the reality. And they don't have to shoot 17 of 34.
Right.
They just can't shoot 4 of 26. They got to be competitive in that stat as they were in Game 3.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, as Brian Windhorst is with us, our ESPN NBA insider. And by that, I mean the fragility of this team. Because we had a little fun at Larry Nance Jr.'s expense earlier on the show. We wanted to get you to weigh in. This was Larry Nance in the off day talking about, hey, it's not just LeBron James.
I think that shows how dangerous we are. We're starting to figure out that, LeBron doesn't have to take 20-some shots for us to, beat a great team by 30. So the rest of us are, very good basketball players in our own right, and it was nice to show that.
So when he said the rest of us are very good basketball players in our own right, Brian, we're going to let you be the deciding voice here. We thought, does that sound more like Stuart Smalley?
I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Or does it sound more like Fredo from The Godfather?
I can handle things, I'm smart.
All right, so which way do you lean on those two?
Now, that's great radio. I'd like to compliment you, because that just brightened my whole day. That made me so happy. I actually do think it's probably a little bit at times more Fredo, especially in Larry Nance's case, because Larry Nance has been benched, and for no reason that I can understand. It's been frustrating, because I thought he's been so good as an energy player. But the strange thing about the Cavs, they just seem to play different when those shots are going down. And for example, Brad Stevens was all upset because the Cavs scored 10 baskets on off-ball cuts in Game 3. And he was talking about the cuts. Well, the reason the Celtics weren't used to the cuts is because they weren't used to the Cavs moving off the ball, because the Cavs were moping so much because they were missing their outside shots that they wouldn't do any of that. So they hit a couple of shots early in the game, and all of a sudden they're cutting off the ball. They're feeling good about themselves, and all that stuff. It's really a strange way to play, but they're actually really talented. As much as I make the joke about Fredo, they're actually so talented that when they are engaged, they're a pretty darn good team.
Yeah.
And so that's what we saw on Saturday. And if you have an idea what's happening in tonight's game, good luck to you, because this team is impossible for me to read.
Well, so are the Celtics on the road. There's no question about that. The most important thing we learned from this, Brian Windhorst, Team Fredo. Brian, we appreciate you being with us this morning. Thanks, man.
Take care, guys.
Team Fredo.
It really is a bad way to play.
Yeah.
To just rely on that. If it's not hitting,
or need that to make
all
you
of a
feel
sudden
like
you're
you
moping,
can do it.
you're not playing well on the other end. It's a horrible way to play.
Slap the floor defense. Let's go.
Oh, God.
Yeah, maybe not that.
Golic
Makes me want to vomit and then punch you square in the face.
and Wingo.
Oh, he's saucy today.
Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. And all phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And I can think of no better two words to describe the Golden Knights season and where they are than progressive and performance, because that is exactly what they have done. Unbelievable that they are playing for the Stanley Cup in their inaugural season. So we think that's pretty cool, but perhaps no one can explain just how cool it is to us better than the man who knows more hockey than anyone, and he's the coolest guy on the face of the earth. That is our NHL analyst, Barry Melrose. Barry, good morning. How are you?
Great, guys. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well. So put this in some sort of perspective. We understand it's the first time since the St. Louis Blues made it to the Stanley Cup Finals in 67-68, but come on. Everybody in the Western Conference Final that year was an expansion team, so somebody was going. The idea that this team is now going to be playing for the Stanley Cup in their inaugural season means what to you?
It's never happened before, and then when things happen that never happened before, that makes them pretty unique, and that's why this is so special. A year ago, they didn't have a team. They had a coach, they had a general manager, they had a building, they had a city, but they didn't have any players. Every player that is on Vegas now is a player that no one wanted from their previous team. They've used that to pull themselves together, to build an identity, to build a camaraderie, and to be where they're at is frankly out of this world. It just shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't be allowed to happen. The example I use is we've got a team like Toronto who's had more money and has everything that a team could possibly need to win, and they have not been to the Stanley Cup Finals since 1966. That was the last year they were at the Stanley Cup Finals. And now you've got a team like Vegas who their first year in existence is going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So I think you see how hard it is to get to the Stanley Cup Finals and how rare it is to get to the Stanley Cup Finals, even if you're an established NHL club. And now we've got a team that didn't have players a year ago that are now going to the Stanley Cup Finals. I think it's the greatest story in sports this year. I think it's one of the greatest stories in sports ever. This just shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be able to happen. It shouldn't be allowed to happen or whatever, but it's just crazy that Vegas is going to play for the Stanley Cup.
So going past this, obviously we'll have the Stanley Cup in play. Whether they win or lose, they're in it right now. And then it'll end. Everybody will take a breath and we'll go into next year. With this team, as you just said, the type of players making it and making up this team, what's the sustainability of what they're doing in the immediate future?
Well, they've got $25 million in cap space available, so they can easily sign every player they've got on the team now. James Neal has to be signed, a few other guys, but the majority of their guys are signed. Marchessault is signed, Roddy Smith is signed. You've got Nate Schmidt is signed, Fleury signed. So a lot of their main players are signed now anyway, so they could easily sign the rest of the guys they want and still go after a guy like Tavares or go after a guy like Carlson from Washington, the defenseman. So this team, if anything, will be better next year than they are this year because of the money they have to spend on players. So for people that think this is just a one-hit wonder, that's not the case at all. All their players are young. They're not going to lose any guys to age. Fleury could easily play 3, 4, 5 more years, and that's the most important position. So this team's not going anywhere. I'm not going to say they're going to go to the Stanley Cup Final next year, but at the start of the season, they won't be 500-1 the way they were this year in Vegas.
No, they won't, and thankfully the Vegas book owners will make sure that they don't make that mistake again. As Barry Melrose, our NHL analyst, is with us. Barry, you mentioned Marc-Andre Fleury. Look, this is a guy who knows what it takes, and has been down this road and has won Stanley Cups. And you mentioned this is a bunch of people that felt like their old team didn't want them anymore. How much specifically for Fleury is he enjoying this, especially with the Penguins out of it?
I think immensely. I think obviously Fleury was one of the most popular players in Pittsburgh, still is probably. Without a doubt, he is the most popular player in Vegas. He's the face of the franchise. He's on superstar status in Vegas. Everybody wants a piece of him. And he's playing the best hockey he's ever played. Anybody you talk to in the hockey world that has seen Marc-Andre Fleury play, this is the best sustained. And I mean, when he won the Stanley Cup, this is the best he's ever played that he's playing right now, the most consistent he's ever played that he's playing right now. So that just is a great story on top of a great story, the reemergence of Marc-Andre Fleury as an elite NHL goaltender. So it's a guy you cheer for. And don't forget, guys, 10 days after this team started, they had that mass shooting in Vegas. So this team, has just been through so much and has become so ingrained in the community in Vegas. There's so many, just little parts of the story that go off in different directions, and it's just amazing how it all comes about that this team ends up going to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Our ESPN NHL analyst Barry Melrose joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And then talking about storylines, let's go over to the East. Talk about before on ice and the physical side of this, just the mental side of the Capitals finally get to this position, but have shown in their history when they're up 2-0 in a series, they actually have a losing record when that series is over. And it could happen again tonight if Tampa Bay beats them in Washington. So from the mental side of that, how much is that sticking in the craw of those players?
Well, this year has been a real funny year for Washington because they've actually shown that this team has character and will fight back. They were down 2-0 to Columbus, and the first 2 games they lost at home, and they went on the road and they won 4 straight to win that series, and they beat Pittsburgh, their arch nemesis. So we thought that we were done with this stuff with Washington, and all of a sudden they were up 2-0 and everything was going their way, and now they're down 3-2. So it's like they want to be tested every series. They want to be have their backs to the wall in every series. And right now that they've lost 3 games in a row. I think they've been the better team 2 of those 3 games, but that doesn't matter. Tampa's won those games, and now we're to a best of 3. Well, not even best 3. They have to win now. This is Game 6, so they have to win tonight if they're going to keep the series going. And they're going to be tested again. They've passed every test so far this year. They've appeared to be a different team mentally, but now they put themselves in this situation again where they have to win this game or it's over. So I think they're going to stand tall. I think this is a different team. I think it's a different mental makeup. Alex Ovechkin is playing great. You've got some other good players that are really playing well. Kuznetsov's having a banner year. Nicky Backstrom's back from injury. He'll be better tonight than he was the last game they played. So I do think they respond and win tonight.
Barry Melrose with us. It really is all about mental stuff for both these teams in the Eastern Conference Finals because, as you said, they're trying to deal with their own demons, the Capitals, and then Tampa Bay walks in saying, what's our problem? We've never lost a playoff game in this building. They are 8-0 all-time in Washington.
Well, if you look at the numbers this year, it's actually better to be a road team than it is a home team. It's crazy this year. I think we've blown all the numbers out of the water as far as home ice advantage goes. Tampa can win anywhere. They've got a great goaltender right now, Vasilevsky, who's playing awesome, and their power play is fantastic right now. They're getting 2 power play goals a game, and Washington's to the point that they can't take penalties. If they take penalties, they're going to lose this game. So that'll probably be one of the keys tonight, obviously, is the power play of Tampa. If they continue to score at the clip they're scoring at now, it's going to be very tough for Washington to be in this game. On the flip side of that, Washington has to stay out of the penalty box, obviously. They got to find a way to score first. I think that's going to be very, very important. And Holtby has to be as good as Vasilevsky at the other end of the rink. And, sometimes that's not a fair statement that one goaltender is basically playing against another goaltender. Goaltenders don't like to say that, but I really think that's the case where we've got 2 goaltenders that are virtually playing against each other, not team against team.
So you have the Capitals winning the game, going to a Game 7. Who wins?
Tampa. I've been on the Tampa bandwagon all year long. I like this team. I love their depth. I love their scoring ability. I love their defense. I love the fact that they have a lot of playoff experience. and Vasilevsky's been as good as goaltender as anybody in the NHL so far. So I think Tampa will eventually win this series.
Barry, you're the best, man. We'll see if it ends tonight or they force it to a Game 7. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Barry.
Take care, guys.
Barry is the best. And by the way, whoever runs the Vegas Golden Knights Twitter feed, also the best. They just put this tweet out. On this date in Golden Knights history, actually not much happened. We didn't have a team yet. Probably just some meetings.
Wow. Well done.
Well done.
Well done.
Well done, Golden Knights.
It's amazing how much fun you can have when you're winning,
It's
right?
all gravy when things are going your way. And right now, the Golden Knights are having all of it. Good for them.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.